This is your Sunday morning worship. This is them banking on what your worship pastor is choosing song-wise. That's what they're betting on. They're betting on the same way you do a stock market. They're betting on the people of God, what they're going to be doing on Sunday morning. And like you said, I mean, that's got to bother you a little bit.
Yeah.
That your Sunday morning worship is a marketplace for the world.
Yeah.
For the world, for the secular world. They're betting on your Sunday morning worship, and they're profiting from it.
Welcome to the Bad Fruit Podcast. I am your host, Jonathan, and I'm joined by my co-host and real-life brother, Judah. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, absolutely. So when a church sings a modern worship song, where does the money go? Most people assume that it probably goes to the artist or that there's no money involved at all. So if you sing a Chris Tomlin song, does Chris Tomlin get paid? If you sing a Hillsong song, does Hillsong get paid? Hillsong song? Yeah, it's really sing-songy, isn't it? If you sing Bethel, does Bethel get paid? But the reality is kind of complicated. And that's really what we're going to be talking tonight about. But before we do that, I wanted to do something kind of fun. Last week, we talked about the fallout of Michael Tate and Newsboys, and we talked about the charity scam kind of that. What was that guy's name again?
Campbell.
Yeah. So Campbell was kind of running a little bit of a charity scam there. He's mad that he's not getting paid.
Yeah, and again, we weren't dogging charities. Charities are good. Even World Vision is a good charity, but it's the fact that you have Christians fighting over the money that's given to to support these charities, to spread the word for it. They're fighting over that money that's given. That's kind of the issue we took.
And we got a lot of really great feedback from all of you listeners on that. A lot of people said that they didn't know about any of that. They didn't know that there was any compensation.
I didn't. That's why I said that was the fallout of, or the aftermath from Michael Tate, is it exposed, this guy's greed, that all this was happening. A lot of people were just like, I never knew that it was even going on.
Yeah.
So, I think of it this way, like if I'm going to sign up to support one of these kids, I'll just go home and get online and support it.
Right.
And then all the money goes to
right. And then Campbell doesn't
ministry.
get his, $400 cut or $500 cut or whatever. But yeah, so a lot of you listeners said that you had never heard about that. We hadn't heard about it till we talked about it, and so hopefully that was a informative episode for you. If you haven't heard that yet, or if this is your first time listening to the Bad Fruit Podcast, that was the last episode that we released, so you can go check that out. And towards the end of that episode, or somewhere in that episode, we kind of got to talking a little bit about the idea of the copyright and the rights that go along with worship music that we sing. And then we kind of made this statement that Christian music kind of isn't the same. And so I thought it'd be really fun to start this episode talking about some of our favorite bands from the, I guess we could call it the golden age of contemporary Christian music, the peak era of CCM. So what were some of your favorite bands from that era? Maybe some of your favorite songs, if it wasn't a band, just kind of what some of that was.
Sure. Obviously growing up in the church, I think in my youth ages, I was mostly at a Baptist church, and I think it was all the heavy hitters, Michael W. Smith, Stephen Curtis Chapman, Newsboys, Amy Grant, and then there was some of the maybe less known guys that I really liked, like Wayne Watson, Brian Duncan, Out of the Gray, David Meese, Al Denson, like all the kind of.
Dude, you're bringing back some core memories naming off some of these guys.
Sure, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yep. I definitely, because our church would host bands, like Al Denson came through, Brian Duncan. And so
I remember the Brian Duncan concert, actually.
Right, yeah.
I remember that distinctively.
So there was a speaker that came with him on the tour,
Yeah.
and the speaker stayed at our house. So Dad hosted
Oh, I didn't know
hosted
that.
him. Yeah,
I don't
so
remember that
yep,
part.
yeah, I remember that because
But we hosted a few different people.
yes,
I remember. So like, I don't know who was
Yeah.
who, but yeah.
So the band that Josh ended up joining, that Mariah, he was in
Yeah.
Mariah. So we hosted that choir that came through. I can't remember the name of the choir, but it was like a traveling choir, and
Trying to
the
remember it.
the
but yeah, I
lead
don't-
singer and the guitar player of their own band stayed at our house and recruited our brother to join the band. And so, like 6 months later, he moved to Texas. We were in California.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was pretty soon after. So
That's right. So
yeah, kind of through that whole
yeah.
idea of staying and hosting people, that's how our brother became
And
himself a musician.
yeah, okay. So we'll get back to some of our favorite bands, but that's something maybe nobody knows about either one of us. So you were kind of part of this band a little bit too. So
later on,
the
yeah,
band,
later on. Yep.
I can post a link. There's probably songs out there if somebody's really curious, on like YouTube or something. But the band was Mariah, not Mariah Carey, but
Yeah, MORIA.
like the Mount Moriah, right?
Yep.
And but yeah, you were kind of part of it a little bit, weren't you?
Yeah, after Josh had been there for a while, I was sending lyrics. Wasn't a singer; I was just a writer. So I would send them lyrics, and then finally they said, "Hey, do you want to come on tour with us?" So I went on tour and stayed with them for a little bit down in Texas. So,
And you
yeah.
actually got a writing credit, didn't you?
Well, sort of.
Oh,
They forgot to put my name in part
but it
of
was your song, though.
But it
right?
was my yeah. I do have a song and then like half a song on the album, so a song and a
Yeah.
half.
That's cool, though.
Yes.
I mean, it's still cool that you have something to show for it. So I was in a band.
That's right.
I
you
was
were
also
too.
the songwriter. I did play guitar. I didn't sing, but I was kind of the rhythm guitarist. And my best friend at the time was the lead singer, and it was a lead singer, bassist, and he was also the lead guitarist. My friend, and then I wrote most of the lyrics, like 99% of the lyrics, and people would kind of throw out ideas, but play rhythm guitar. And we never had a drummer, like a consistent drummer. I don't know why. And then we had some keys occasionally.
Most bands don't have a consistent drummer,
Yeah, what is it with drummers? Like, you just don't want to stick
except for
around.
the Newsboys. They had a really good
Oh, yeah.
drummer. But yeah,
Oh, they didn't go through them? They had the same one for a long time?
yes,
Yeah.
yep,
But my band's name was Glass, just Glass.
dude,
And this is early 2000s.
that's deep. Yeah, that's deep.
It's, what does it mean, Glass? It's, I think I had a deep spiritual meaning for it in my mind, and probably could have told you back then. But yeah, it was basically just that early 2000s, just thinking I'm so smart and deep and everything. But what really stinks about it is we didn't we played a lot of shows. We moved to Nashville. We didn't play any shows in Nashville. But we played in Virginia and did some shows out there. And I know for a fact that a couple of our shows were recorded. Like somebody had a camera, but I can't find access. I don't have access to any of that. So there's actually no proof that we existed. There's no audio proof. I don't have any recordings of it. But
What's crazy is there's a lot of bands from the 90s and early 2000s that are very similar. Like, I've been looking for a band. I don't even know the name of the band. All I know is they did a cover of Michael W. Smith's Rocket Town that was really cool. And we used to it was like just one of those burner CDs that had like 10 different musicians on there that are bands. And I can't find it. I can't find a record of it anywhere. Like, I don't know.
You don't know what
I don't
happened to
know
Burner?
because they were probably like unsigned too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I can't find the CD. And there was a lot of really good music from that generation that didn't make it big. They did not make it into the CCM world. So
Oh, heck yeah. So in the early 2000s, I was going to shows all the time. I was living in Southern California. And obviously the big names would come through and stuff. So I got to see Switchfoot. Actually got to see them before they were like really big. But there were also a lot of local venues that would do local bands or like kind of smaller circuit bands. There's one local band from where I lived at the time, and I think they actually did get signed. They were called The Chemistry. Yeah, I got to see a lot of good local bands and just smaller bands. And yeah, you won't find them on Apple Music or on Spotify or even on YouTube, really. But I still have all of my CDs from that era. And last year I was going through my CDs and I found a stack of CDs that I got at these shows. And so it was really cool because like they would put their own label on it or just write their band name with the Sharpie and stuff.
Right, yeah.
And so like I was kind of putting a couple in there to listen. I was like, oh yeah, I totally remember this band, but like they didn't get signed. So some of my favorite bands, kind of like what you're saying, like I really liked the first 3 Jars of Clay albums. Last week I mentioned basically everything Newsboys did before, up to Life, Liberty, Disco, or Love, Liberty, Disco. Everything after that I didn't like. So I asked our Facebook page, just some of their favorite bands. And so I did want to kind of read some of the ones you guys mentioned. And I'm really glad that this one got thrown out there because I totally forgot about them. But Petra.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Beyond
Petra and Carmen.
Dude, okay.
Yeah.
We got to talk about Carmen.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody mentioned Carmen, but dude, the witch's assistant or the witch, I can't remember what it was called, but that was like a terrifying song that Carmen did.
Oh, dude, yeah, all his songs.
He like goes to like a Satanist's house or is like a witch's house.
Dude,
and, like,
his music videos.
Satan bite the dust.
Yeah, that one. I used to know all those lyrics.
Yeah. If you don't know what we're talking about, just look up Carmen Satan Bite the Dust and watch the music video. It's like a fever dream.
Dude, yeah, it's wild. Yep. But yeah, Petra is they're another big gun that was out there.
A couple more that some of you guys mentioned was DeGarmo and Key.
Dude.
Forgot about them.
Yep.
And Whiteheart.
Oh, yeah. I think there was White Cross too, wasn't there?
I think there was a White
Something
Cross.
like that,
yeah.
yeah. I always got those two confused.
Some bigger name ones: Hawk Nelson, Reliant K, Skillet, Red. I actually didn't know Red was a Christian band. I guess. Point of Grace, Rebecca St. James, Mercy Me. Third Day was mentioned again. I liked Third Day's old stuff before they did Worship.
Dude. Yeah. Yep.
And we'll talk a little bit about that. Yeah, I mean, dude, there were so many good bands, and I thank everybody for sharing the ones that you guys liked.
One of my all-time favorites, though, but I wasn't introduced to them until later on.
Okay.
But it's Caedmon's Call.
Dude, I think
so
they're actually like reformed. There's a song that's really good. They were.
Yeah,
okay.
they're not. I don't think they're following the Lord anymore. But they were a band out of Texas, and when I moved to Texas, that's when I started hearing them, and was like, dude, these guys are really cool.
Striper.
Yes.
POD. Dude, they were good. I actually have a signed CD of theirs.
Nice, dude.
The Satellite
Did
album.
one sign a P and the other one an O and the other one a D?
No, it's just
okay.
it's just
all right.
they're the band.
So
People signed it, but 1,000 Foot Crutch, Audio Adrenaline.
I was just gonna say, we haven't even mentioned Audio Adrenaline,
dude. Were they the ones that did Going to Church in My Minivan, or was that someone
No,
else?
that was Silage.
Silage, yeah.
That's another good one, but I don't know if they were. They are on iTunes, so I think they were a signed band. So there were so many of those little 5-minute walk records and different things that were unsigned.
Do you remember? Was it All Star United, Living in a Marshmallow World or something?
Yeah. Yep.
But no, and a lot of you also mentioned how in the early 2000s, how the like the Tooth and Nail records came around and like Christian music got heavy.
Yes.
Like, and not that it hadn't before. Obviously, there was Striper, Petra, and all those bands. But like in the early 2000s, you had POD, you had Project 86, Chevelle. Their first 2 albums, I think, were technically like under a Christian label, and then they
Yeah, those are heavy.
yeah. So and then there were like the hardcore Christian bands like Norma Jean and many others, and Demon Hunter, and so what's interesting is in the 90s and 80s, like I look back at Michael W. Smith's first couple albums, especially like his first maybe 5 albums. What's crazy to me is when you go back and listen to his stuff, dude, it's so much like what was on the radio and secular music in the 80s. It like he really was of his time. He was doing stuff that was really good. And then in the 90s when I became more aware, like I was listening to like secular music, and then there were Christian bands that were better or just as good. And like I mentioned again, like I really liked Jars of Clay. That first album of theirs with the Flood, dude, I have non-Christian friends who and people that have told me like that's one of their favorite albums of all time.
Sure,
And it doesn't matter if it's a Christian album to them. Like it was just a really good album at the time.
Oh yeah.
Like just cutting edge, just awesome effects and style and everything like that. And so like in the 80s and 90s, Christian music was good, and it was cutting edge, and it was there's another band, Delirious.
Yeah.
Cutting edge.
Oh yeah. Yep.
King of Fools, great album.
Yep.
So the music was like it was Christian, but it wasn't worship. It was Christian, but it wasn't like trying to be preachy all the time. It was just like moral music that you could put on and be an alternative to the secular world. It was Christian music for Christians, or for anybody who wanted to listen to. And sure, there were a few cheesy exceptions, but even in the secular world, there's some cheesy bands out there, right? Like, but something shifted in music. And I think why a lot of people, especially a little bit younger than us, are really fond of the heavier early 2000s music, aside from the fact that maybe they just genuinely enjoy, heavier Christian music, which I do too. Like, I like all those bands. But that's around the time that CCM music shifted. And we stopped just having like a Christian music industry that was built around just making music that didn't have to be preachy. It was just, like, I mean, like think about, well, again, Jars of Clay's album Flood, right? You wouldn't necessarily know that was a Christian album unless you really started dissecting the lyrics. But it's a morally good album, right?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
But then in the early 2000s, something starts to shift. And now bands are doing worship albums. They're not just putting out Christian music. They're putting out worship music. And the segment of Christian music that really didn't do that was the hardcore scene, the tooth and nail stuff, the heavier music. Probably just
there was a few that did.
There were,
but it wasn't a version you were going to play at church. Like, it was heavy. It might have been Amazing Grace, but it was Amazing Grace.
Well, and honestly, it was more like a novelty thing, right?
Sure, yeah.
It's like, hey, we're a metal band. We're going to do a worship album because it's going to be kind of fun. Like, we're Christians. We want to worship, so we're going to do this for people who want this. But then they would do another good metal band album afterwards, right?
Yeah.
So I was kind of curious about this, and I was kind of looking into it. And the shift happens in the late 90s, actually. It's about 92, or not 92, 99. Sorry. And Third Day is actually kind of responsible in some aspects for this. I didn't realize this, but so their first album,
was it God of Wonders?
No, it was Offerings, a worship album. It actually came out in 2000 is when it was released. And then in 2001, Michael W. Smith releases his album Worship. It's just called Worship. And now I've talked about this when I talked about Hillsong and stuff. They changed their church name to Hillsong because in the early 90s, they were releasing worship music under that label. And so it's not that worship music wasn't being released. It was, but we're not going to dissect Hillsong's theology at this moment. But despite their bad theology, they were a church. And so that was the norm. It was a church would put out worship music. Or some bands like Delirious, who kind of were sort of flirting with the worship side of things. They would kind of do like a worship album, then a regular album, then kind of go back and forth. They put out some worship albums too, but they also would still put out those like regular albums. But really, it's around the time of Third Day Offering and then Michael W. Smith's Worship, and all of a sudden you have these mainstream CCM artists doing worship music. And part of the reason for that is, think about this. Newsboys releases just a regular album. Third Day releases a regular album, right? Okay. They're going to do promotion for it. They're going to go on tour. They're going to sell their CD, some merch for it. It gets some radio play. In some circumstances, like Sixpence None the Richer or Jars of Clay, your album or your song, one of your songs might even end up in a secular TV show or even in a movie. Like Sixpence None the Richer's Kiss Me got used in like a bunch of movies and stuff.
Right, yeah.
Jars of Clay had one of their songs on a TV show, I think. That wasn't a Christian show. So like that would maybe be the best you could hope for.
Dude, Jars of Clay, I remember... what's the movie? It's Christian Slater. Where it's all flooded. It's like an old. What movie was
that? Hard Rain?
Hard Rain
Is one of their songs in it?
The end credits when the movie's over. It's
flood.
It's flood.
Okay,
it was
funny.
so cool because it just the way the movie ends.
Yeah.
It's just the credits and it just kicks off flood.
Okay.
It was super cool. Yeah.
Switchfoot was in A Walk to Remember, and then Mandy Moore even did a cover of a Switchfoot song.
Oh wow, yeah.
For it. So, but yeah, no. So that might be the best you could hope for, right? Would be that you get some good radio play, gets kind of in the rotation, and you get the royalties or the your songs at a movie or a TV show or something, and so people know about you. You get money from that. But then what happens? Another band releases an album. They become the one everyone's talking about. You go back to writing your next album, and people only go back to that album for nostalgic reasons. Or, they've already bought the album. It's not like something that's going to keep getting sold. But here's the thing. With worship music, every church is singing your songs. So now you can get royalties continually. And if it's a song that churches really like or really takes off on worship like radio stations or on, just Christian music anyway, then yeah, your church wants to sing it. So you want to write catchy worship songs. You want to be the one who has the new trendy album so that more churches sing it. And the thing about worship music is it doesn't matter if the song is 5-10 years old. Once your church starts singing it, it becomes part of the rotation and they want to keep singing it.
Yeah, and sometimes even the name of the church has kind of would almost fit into a certain song, and so they're going to sing that song quite a bit. If your name of your church is the Father's House or something, you'll sing a song about fathers.
Oh yeah,
and different things. So that kind of thing. So
it's my Father's house,
and yeah, maybe not that song, but actually, I do remember.
Oh, I've heard some churches actually sing that.
Sing that on Sunday morning.
It's a good song.
But to clarify too, like a lot of this is in the age where bands are not necessarily don't have. If you're signed under a record label, you don't have full control of your album, and so executive producers, they're the ones telling at times they're the ones telling the band, hey, we're not going to do another album for you unless it's a worship album. So a lot of times it was out of the band's creative, it was out of their hands. They were told to do a worship album, or
Sure.
we're not going to do this album because this is where everyone's headed. And it wasn't always the case, but there were a lot of people that it was. Elisa Childers, she's one of them. She says they went with an album, wanting to do an album, and they said no, we'll only do a worship album.
Right.
And so she left the industry, and that was kind of where it was going with a lot of different people. It was they didn't have, there wasn't social media at the time, so they couldn't just say, hey guys, we're going out on our own. It was up to their producers to tell them what their next album is going to be. So in other words, this isn't necessarily a time when people can just go, hey, I'm going to do it this way. They were being told. That was the money, the people that were making the money, they saw that. They said, okay, this is where the money is now. It's in worship songs.
Yeah.
It's getting our songs in Sunday morning church. So it wasn't necessarily the bands going, hey, I want all this money, I'm going to start doing worship songs. Now, I'm sure that's in some cases that.
Yeah.
But the trend was more being followed by the higher ups, the producers, the ones that had control over these bands that were signed.
And yeah, no, absolutely. I think you're absolutely right. I don't know if it was always quite as nefarious as you're maybe wording it, because I think it was probably marketed a lot more like, hey, this is a really trendy thing that's happening. We can make more money with it, or you can get more influence for doing this.
Sure,
so
yeah,
it's not
yeah,
so
not
much
necessarily
like,
nefarious.
Hey, you can't do your regular album. That might have happened occasionally, but a lot of times it was probably like, this is what's trending, this is what's hot. Would you consider doing this? And a lot of bands will listen to their producers and label and say, okay, yeah, we can do that, But that actually, you reminded me, one of my favorite secular bands is Wilco. Mm-hmm. And around that time in 2000, like late 90s, early 2000s, they left their label and over like control issues. And they had already had some albums out, like they weren't a new band or anything like that. And so I think, too, which you're raising a really good point, is that the early 2000s is kind of a shift in the music industry. Like the old ways of doing music are still happening. And so with more access to things, with the internet kind of, budding and coming around and stuff, like there were some bands who were like, we really want to do this. We want to try some creative things and things like that. And labels were still kind of operating in their old way of like, no, you're going to do what the label wants you to do. And so a lot of bands stuck it out with their label because you don't want to get dropped by your label. What if you don't? Because that happens actually sometimes. Band leaves their label and they never get picked up again, or something like that. So there's a little bit of fear around those things. But like for Wilco, they wanted to have some control and stuff, and so they ended up going to a different label, and they were able to and stuff, and they put out a really good album. But that was probably happening in the Christian world too, where you still had a lot of control from producers. And I don't know if it's ever really changed too much in the Christian world, but I know in like the secular world, artists today, especially in the secular world, have so much freedom because of the internet. Like if you put your stuff on TikTok, it's like your label's not going to argue with you if you have millions of views on TikTok. You know what I mean?
Oh,
like,
yeah,
so like,
yeah.
You
absolutely.
can go straight to the fans, and they're like, "Oh, actually, we want you because." And people get signed sometimes just by singing cover songs on YouTube, and like it's crazy.
Right? Yeah. You definitely have more ways of getting your name out there if you're trying to do it solo, and then obviously sound equipment has gotten a lot better. Where maybe $100,000 studio, you can now get almost just as good recording, and production with just an iMac and.
I mean, our $1 million studio sounds pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, we did.
If we had $1 billion.
1.2, if we're going to be honest, it was a little over. Yeah.
Thank you for your donations.
Yes. Yeah.
No, we're literally using a Mac and a couple
we
cheap
actually
mics.
bought a Chris Tomlin catalog for Sunday morning worship, so now we're just swimming in gold coins down here.
Yeah. Like Scrooge McDuck. With the shift to worship music, the money wasn't just coming from ticket sales at concerts. It wasn't just, album sales and all that stuff. now you had like royalties coming in more often because it's being sung. The sheet music could also be sold because here's the thing. If your church is going to play the song, they need to know how to play the song, right? So there'd be books being sold with all of these worship songs on these albums. And then if a church adopts it into their regular rotation, that means that they're going to get more royalties because it's going to be sung more often. And then around this time, we also have a lot of Christian conferences that are popping up. Not that they're like new at this time, but there's like worship conferences that are happening. One name that we hadn't mentioned was Passion. They're actually a little bit earlier than all of this. I think they're late 90s. And then there was like the Passion Conference, I believe, and some of that stuff. And so you had that. So that would be exposure plus royalties. And then also when it becomes a worship song that churches are singing, there's also translations of it for other countries. There'll be acoustic versions of the song. And so one band might do a worship album, and then they might do like an acoustic worship album, and then they might do a live worship album. It's the same songs over and over on all those albums, but they get more money because it's a new album coming out. So again, I'm not necessarily saying that there's anything wrong per se with any of these sorts of things. I'm not even saying that it was nefarious or that the studio was like, you have to do this, or that the bands were just seeking money. But we see a massive shift in the early 2000s away from the just normal Christian music. And what gets lost with that is we had songs about just regular life. We had songs about just people doing things, right? Songs about doubt, about suffering. Not always Jesus comes in and saves everything, not just glory to God, but like real life issues, songs about friendship, marriage, death, right?
Well, if you listen to a lot of Michael W. Smith and Amy Grant songs, Stephen Chris Chapman as well, I mean, they have love songs.
Yeah.
You know, like literally like Michael W. Smith
baby.
or image songs. Michael W. Smith, you don't have to be picture perfect.
Yeah.
To fit the frame. I mean, that's deep stuff, but it's not
right.
You're not going to sing that on Sunday morning.
Oh yeah.
No, and I agree, and I think one of the things like, and there was worship songs like Maranatha, the Gaithers, those kind of things. There was, you like Keith Green and some of those guys.
That's like 70s. Yeah.
Yeah, they were doing worship songs. So there are worship songs that were being done at that time, but that was like a whole different group of people. You know, like, does that make sense?
No,
like,
it was different.
Like, you didn't turn on Maranatha or the Vineyard or the Gaithers to hear songs about image or looking good or being colorblind and those things. and so it was, those were worship songs. A lot of those started being sung in the church, those kind of things. But I think what it was is, as these caught wind, like why are these worship singers, Maranatha and all them, and why are they they're driving nicer cars than us, and should be the popular band guys. And then they find out, they're getting royalties from churches, because that started in 1988 is when it was officially formed, the CCLI.
Oh yeah.
And so in 1988 is when they started actually keeping record, paying out, all that stuff. So then you look, if you say 98 is when Third Day wrote that. So it took about 10 years to catch up, and then all of a sudden people are like, hey, let's jump on this bandwagon.
So I want to back up a little bit. So I'm not saying that Third Day is fully responsible. So you're absolutely right.
We're going to drag him in here, and we're going to
So obviously,
what's his name? Kevin or Mac Powell.
Oh yeah.
Let's get Mac Powell in here and beat him up.
If you want to come on the podcast and defend yourself, no. And I like Third Day, like they're fine. But no, you're absolutely right. You had those worship bands. You had Keith Green, although Keith Green is a unique case in the worship area because he also did regular songs about life too.
Oh yeah,
and he was amazing, and I don't think he was in for the money. Like, he was a genuine dude.
Well, no, he couldn't have been. He wasn't getting any royalties back then.
Yeah, but so you do have that. You do have the worship scene, and I think I actually kind of want to say like it is kind of in the 80s, late 70s, early 80s when you do have this introduction of CCM, right? And so kind of prior to that, most Christian music was gospel or worship. And then you would have like occasionally like Keith Green would do a song about doubt or a song about, maybe a love song for or whatever. The majority of Christian music kind of was worship geared, but you had a few artists who were doing some of those things. And then it kind of blows up, and I don't want to say it's just Michael W. Smith because around that time was also Stephen Curtis Chapman and some of the other guys you named. But in the 80s, like this genuine alternative to the secular mainstream like music scene pops up, and the benefit of it is that again these are songs about normal life but with a Christian ethic to it, and so just anybody could listen to that, and it's like you're gonna get a positive Christian worldview. Maybe the theology isn't good. We haven't like done a deep dive into every single song these people ever sang, but that wasn't the point. It wasn't worship. It was just there's a Christian ethic to a song about normal life. And so, yeah, in the early 90s, even Hillsong was around, but that was labeled worship music. And so why I bring up Third Day is they had done some worship stuff prior to this. But when they released that, they were primarily known as a CCM band. And they're like, hey, we're doing a full-on worship album. And it was very, very successful. And all of a sudden, other Christian bands are like, this is successful. This is... And I'm not saying that it was for bad reasons. It was just, it was now the trend. But what ends up happening is it becomes more profitable, and it kills the CCM world where it was like we just had Christian songs about normal life, and now every album had to be about Jesus, which is not a bad thing, but it had to be like not just about Jesus, but like, sorry, every album had to be like a worship song to Jesus instead of being a Christian album about Christian life. There's nothing wrong with a Christian singing a song about, struggling with depression or, like you said, image or these different things, or a love song that, a guy can like think, or a gal can think about to their wife or husband. There's nothing wrong with that. We should have Christian music that deals with every aspect of life. And it's fine to also have worship music, but around this time it just becomes all worship.
Sure. Yeah, no, absolutely. It's funny because back in the day, you didn't have iTunes, so you couldn't just download or pre-download the next coming out album.
Right.
Like now, it's like, I had the Noah Kahan, like 6 months before it came out, had that pre-downloaded as soon as it came out a couple weeks ago. It's on my phone. Back then, you're listening to CDs or tapes at a Christian bookstore, and you may only have enough money, as a 12 to 14-year-old to buy one album. And so you're listening to, Michael W. Smith, with the headphones, Michael Card, Gary Chapman, Michael English, all these different, and you only get to pick one.
Yeah.
And so it's not like, I'll just download all of them.
Right.
Because I only pay $14 whatever a month. It's like, no, which one are you taking home? And I think that's what's hard about this is that's why Michael W. Smith was getting so many tape sales. I mean, of course, if you don't have a Michael W. Smith tape or CD, that's the one you're going to get, because he's got there's better, more songs that you like on the album. And so that's when this shift is happening. It's also you're getting into the MP3 players now. The the royalty thing has been going on, and so it's when people are deciding what albums to buy, and everything's getting pushed to worship. You're kind of looking for like, well, where's that, the Switchfoot or the next new album. And you're like, oh man, everything's worship, and like I said, it's not a bad thing, but it just feels like something was taking off in the 2000s musically, and it's almost like it got squashed.
Yeah,
like kind of that, we were coming out of the grunge era band, and I think the world went their way, and Christianity went its other way. which, we're supposed to be separate anyway, but it was just that kind of idea of like, it's just hard to say. Like, I turn on the radio and I hear I lost my keys in the great unknown. Like, that's a Christian song about losing their keys. Like, that's like, who are the gatekeepers of Christian music right now?
Is that like a current song?
I think it's probably like 2010s or something, but
I've never
the whole
heard
song's
this.
about like things that drive this person crazy. It's like, I lost my keys, and it's like just one of those like, I broke a nail and I need Jesus now songs. Like just
so yeah.
And it's just like, who is gatekeeping and allowing these songs to get through right now? Because when people are going back now to try to do regular music and not worship, it's, like, I want a Christian song that talks about pain and hurt, like real pain and hurt, not losing your keys or your cell phone, like some good, deep Christian songs.
Yeah.
And now, like, somebody told me, have you heard of, is it Solomon Ray?
Before you say, I want to throw out there that Switchfoot is actually one of the few bands that I don't think they ever did a worship album.
Oh, dude, no.
Like, they've flirted with the idea of like worship-ish songs on a few albums, but and I think that's where we kind of need to be charitable, is that not every single band did that. Some bands did stay, kind of still that way, but so many did do it that it became this huge shift. And I think you raise a really good point while you're looking up what you're looking up. I think you raise a really good point that around this era, it feels like lyrics are so simple after this era, and that the theology is just very broad. So yes, they're worship songs, but they're not denominationally specific songs. So they're meant to be broad and be able to be sung in any church, which means that they're not super deep in theology, because you don't want to offend the Methodists by being too Baptist, or offend the Presbyterians by being too Lutheran, right? And so you just do very broad worship theology, which is why we kind of make the joke, and we didn't come up with this joke, but Jesus is my boyfriend worship songs,
right?
Because you have to get that vague to be able to make it into every single church. But when you get that vague to be able to make it in every church, what are you actually saying anymore? Right? If you can swap Jesus for your girlfriend or whatever, then it's not a worship song, really.
Yeah, there's a song right now, I can't remember what it is. It's on one of my kids' playlists. I literally thought it was a worship song. I was like, why do you have a worship song on your playlist? And they're like, no, that's a love song. And I was like, are you serious? I mean, it literally, because I'll have to figure it out, find out.
Mad that they had worship? You're like, why are you listening to worship,
kids? What are you
kids?
doing listening to worship? Somebody was telling me, have you heard of Solomon Ray?
That sounds familiar, but
Okay, yeah. And actually, the way I'm doing this to you, asking you if you've heard of this person, is actually how it was done to me.
Okay, cool.
No, dude, it's an AI band, Christian band, and it made the #1 Billboard chart for Christian music. It's an AI band.
So like
this
Suno?
Maybe Suno. I mean, like, and so,
so like, there's no humans involved in it.
So okay,
or they wrote the lyrics.
So
maybe.
I looked it up. So Solomon Ray, the most famous AI gospel act, created by Mississippi-based artist Christopher Topher Townsend. Solomon Ray's album "Faithful Soul" and hit tracks like "Find Your Rest" and "Goodbye Temptation" have reached #1 on the iTunes Christian charts. There's also another AI band called the Velvet Sundown. There's also thematic AI channels where it just pumps out Christian music, crafted hymns, metal, worship songs, whatever you want.
That's wild.
So, it again, who are the gatekeepers? That's like, hey, we're gonna put an AI Christian song,
Yeah,
on the radio. We're gonna put lost my keys on the radio.
Maybe that's AI.
No, I mean it probably sounds like it, but it's older before AI. But
Yeah.
but that idea of just letting bands produce what going back to, I mean, how many times have you said I like their first album or I like their first two albums? I mean, Jars of Clay, if you go to Jars of Clay, their first album, production on that is horrible.
Yeah.
It sounds like half of it was recorded in our basement down here. So, but it's amazing. It's an amazing album. Then you get to Much Afraid,
which is
produced,
very well produced.
I think at the time, I want to say I heard they spent like over $100,000 in producing it, which back then was a lot of money for what they did. But then,
and that is a great album.
But then after that, like I know some people love the Zoo one, and
there's a couple
if
good
I
songs.
ever left the
That's
Zoo
why,
or whatever.
That's why I include it, because there's a couple good songs on it.
But like to me, it was Much Afraid and Flood.
Yeah.
I mean, whatever. Did that album have a name? Was it called Flood? Or did it even have a name?
I think it's actually just Jars of Clay, but everyone calls it Flood.
Yeah. So to me, those two albums.
Yeah.
And after that, they were just overproduced. The production was. It felt like they spent more time on production than actually their melodies, their riffs, all that stuff.
And he's one of my favorites. Like his voice is just so good, especially on the Much Afraid album. Like because it is good production and it's good song. It's good. Like all around, it's one of my favorite albums of all time.
So
it reminds me of a little bit of like Collective Soul, slightly.
Right. Yeah.
The vibe.
Another good band right there.
And
We'll throw them in the Christian.
Aren't they kind of Christian adjacent?
I think they are. I just think they were like Switchfoot and never said, "Hey, we're."
I feel like they were.
Yeah, kind of like 21 Pilots. They're a Christian band, but they're not.
I wanted to bring them up real quick. So 21 Pilots the guys are Christian. Their album last year came out called Breach, and on Breach they have a song called Downstairs, and I didn't know they were a Christian band, and I was listening to this album, and this song comes on, and it starts with, "You can have all I've made and all I've ever known. You can have both my lungs if you ask me so, because I want to be the one after your own heart. And I might doubt this process like I doubted the start." And when I heard that, I'm like, man after your own heart, that sounds like David maybe, And then it goes, "So I'm begging for mercy. I'm begging for mercy." I'm like, what? And then it says, "Downstairs, I feel better in the cellar. Down there, it's some shelter from the weather. I wear my heart on my sleeve. I'll take what I believe, and I'm hiding it downstairs." And then to the second verse, the end of it, it says, "Now I'm just ashamed how I hide my face from you." And then it goes back to "So I'm begging for mercy." And just listen to the song yourself. It's Downstairs on the album Breach by 21 Pilots. Came out last year. Honestly, better than most worship music out there, because it reminds me of a psalm, right? Of him saying like, "I hide my face from you. I want to follow you. I'm hiding in the basement. I'm ashamed of this." Like, this is all of us, right? When we've sinned or we're doubting something, what do? We hide. You know what I mean? It's Adam and Eve in the garden, and when they eat from the tree and they realize they're naked and they're hiding from God, right? Like, so, like, this is quality lyrics, really good lyrics. It's honest lyrics, and it doesn't have to be marketed as Christian. It's got a Christian moral to it. And this is what's missing when you literally have just a AI generated thing pumping out worship music and Christian music. You lose the human side of it that's actually going through emotions, and that's what we had in the old days of CCM. Is maybe not as edgy as 21 Pilots all the time, but there were some bands like that. But like that, they were being honest. They were talking about real things, and it didn't have to all end up with Jesus fixed everything tonight, because that's not how the Christian life is. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
yeah.
There's going to be suffering. There's going to be times where you're in the desert, where you're doubting things, when you're begging God for mercy. And so Yeah, I don't know. That song to me is one of my favorite songs right now. I play it often.
Have you listened to Mumford and Sons' new album, Prize Fighter?
A little bit. I haven't really dug into it too
Okay,
much.
dude, it's all about repentance, confession, it's again.
I think they're actually
I
Christian adjacent too.
I think
one
so.
of the guys,
Yeah,
at least one of the guys I think I've heard is professing Christian.
yeah, and then I went back and started listening to a couple of their previous albums too, and yeah, there's some kind of shift in there because, I mean, this whole album, almost every song, it has some type of confession, repentance. It's just great, and they do. It sounds. It reminds me of a Christian album.
Yeah.
That is not about Jesus is my boyfriend, but more of like, man, my life is horrible, but if it wasn't for redemption and something outside of me, which we would say is Christ,
right?
There was no hope for me, and that Prize Fighter song is just great. I mean, I picture just the way. I have a theory on the Prize Fighter song that it's about Peter and Jesus, and it's just cool. It's a cool song, but you just have to go listen to it and listen to the album.
I need to give it another. I liked what I listened to. I just didn't listen to it a second time. So
no, I'm the kind of person. I don't know how you are with music. I'll listen to the same album for like 3 months. Just that's all I put on and
until you
listen to it,
kind of memorize
and,
it.
and kind of think through it and stuff like that. So that's
usually how I am. So I need to do that. Yeah,
I'm doing that now with the Noah Kahan.
Dude, okay.
I'm doing the clean version.
Okay, that album, his new album,
dude.
I'm not saying it's a Christian album.
No, it's definitely not.
But it is a solid album. Really great songwriting. Yeah. Great, yeah. I like that album a lot.
What I like about Noah Kahan is he writes about depravity and how we're all depraved.
Yeah,
and it can seem hopeless unless you look at it through the lens of what Christ has done for us. And so he's somebody that's in a place, if he's hasn't found Christ, that he's in that place where that vulnerable place where he knows it's not something that can be done on his own. And that's what I love about the album. I mean, it's written from just all his albums to me are like so just so human and so depraved that it's like, not in a bad way, but just shows the depravity of man. So much struggle with alcoholism in like 90% of his songs and all that stuff. So just an honest, truthful musician. And I think that's what we saw in the 90s Christian music. We saw people, in early 2000s, people just opening up and putting their their life into these albums. And I think that's the difference. If you have to sit down and you're forced to write a worship song, and you're doing it because you know that you're going to make more money if you do that. And I think that's the conflict, is like, if this is just being done to make money, then it's not about who had the audience of one song? Was that Big Daddy Weave or something?
Oh, maybe
another good band right there. There was like I don't, even if the the stadium's empty, all that stuff, I'm singing to you, Jesus. But I think if you're sitting down writing a song to say, all right, I'm trying to picture a congregation at this church singing this. If that's why you're writing the Christian song, then the worship song, then I think that's wrong, and I think your heart's not there, because this is like you said, there's no liturgy, there's no theology, there's no in these broad songs. I mean, how many, like Catching the Wind, I think, is one that people are singing in churches, and there's just no
no theology in
sailing
it.
or oceans. Like,
you got to do oceans first and then catch the wind.
Right. And there's no theology, and I think that's what's hard, is it whatever church you're at, if you think on a Sunday morning, however your church liturgy is, which is just how the church is.
Even mega churches that are non-denominational have liturgy.
Yeah. So Um, and so if you get a song that is a Jesus is my boyfriend song, then you get announcements, and then you get two more songs. You might be 45 minutes into your service before you even hear theology or the Word of God.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden the pastor opens the Bible and preaches. That's you've been at church for 45 minutes and you haven't even heard the Word of God. Where more traditional churches, hymn churches, churches that profess
Sure.
creeds. We've been visiting a church that, I mean, they open up with script, or they do their announcements first, which I like, because then once they get into
Yeah.
the thing, so they do these quick announcements, but then they read the word, they
That's what
pray,
do.
they do. If there was a baptism, they do the baptism, which we got to see 2 baptisms. Which
Do they
was cool.
baptize babies there?
They do infant baptisms? Yeah.
Do
So we saw 2 babies, infant
Baptize
babies,
your babies.
2 2 weeks in a row. Yeah.
That's
and
awesome.
and families
Praise
become
God.
members there. So but it's you're here throughout the whole service. You're hearing the word of God, and it was that way too when I visited the Lutheran church. It was you're hearing the word of God before the pastor even comes up to preach.
Yeah.
You're hearing the word of God. You're being introduced to this all, and you just like it. You're like, hey, this is cool. This is what I came here for. Like, not I can hear like I said,
Right.
I can hear a same song similar to that on a secular playlist.
Yeah.
That sounds like a worship song. I don't need
Right.
to go to church.
And it might be done better by them because they're not trying to manipulate anybody.
Sure.
you know?
Yeah.
So I do want to come back to, you'd mentioned CCLI. So CCLI stands for the Christian Copyright Licensing International. So that is the copyright marketplace system, whatever you want to call it, for worship music and Christian music.
Yeah, and that needs to be a thing.
Right.
You know
There's
what I'm
nothing
saying?
wrong
Like,
with this.
There's nothing wrong
Yeah.
with I have nothing against Chris Tomlin getting money if people are using his songs.
So, so the main thing that exists is it helps churches legally use songs at
Right.
church.
Yep.
Because, and this just kind of gets into the broader scope of like just the music industry in general, right? We're in a band, we write a song, we put it out there, we're going to copyright it, right? And then anybody who ever wants to sing that song, if it wants to be in a movie, well, they have to talk to the copyright holder, right? That's just business. That's just normal things. So the church, if a church wants to sing it because they're going to be singing it corporately and in front of things, and there might be
live streams
or things like that, they need to make sure that they can legally do that, because otherwise they could say, well, we wrote this song, right? So like it's just part of the normal business side of music. And you could make the case that worship music shouldn't be about making money, right? And that bands shouldn't necessarily try to like protect their copyright from a church using it, right? And you could make that case, and there are some bands that do that, okay? I don't have a list in front of me, but I have heard of some of those bands. There are some worship bands that have like intentionally said, we write worship music that is free to use in your church. Now, that's their like caveat, is like, we don't necessarily want you to put it in a movie without talking to us, but like any church can sing this for free.
Yeah, I think that is it. City
Light.
City
I
Light.
think they're the ones. But I don't quote me on that, right? And so, but yeah, I think you are right on that. So in that sense, sure. And then you could also make the case that it's important to, Paul says to give a worker his wages, right? Okay, so if you're the songwriter and this is the gift that God has given you, and you write something that the whole is going to be beneficial to the whole church, this is a way to pay that person for their labor, and so you could make a case kind of on either side of it, right? So I'm not necessarily critiquing the CCLI as a thing that exists, right? So then you have Song Select, and this is where. And there's a few different ones, but Song Select is a worship planning resource database. And there's a few other things that are kind of in this whole thing, right? But you as a church, if you want to sing a song, you subscribe to one of these databases, one of these services that gives you access to copyrighted worship material. And this database might include Hillsong, it might include Chris Tomlin, and it might include a band that is like, maybe there's a Lutheran band in it. Maybe there's a, Presbyterian band, whatever it might be. Any worship music that's in it, you have access to those songs for your church to sing. And then you can, on Sunday morning, you sing it, and then you report the song that you sing. And then they collect, the CCLI collects that data, and then they pay it out to the copyright holders. And I don't know how much we got into this last week, but you were talking about buying and selling songs in batches, right?
Right. Yeah.
And
they're a catalog. And they put it together.
We'll talk about that in a second. But we said that the copyright holder, I can't remember how we worded it last week, but I wanted to clarify just exactly how that works because I looked into it more. The band, the original writer of the song, not necessarily the band, but the original writer of the song retains songwriter rights, and they will always get royalty checks from that, is what I've discovered, right? So if you write a song and Chris Tomlin sings it, you are the songwriter.
Okay.
You have the songwriter credit. You will get paid royalties on it. Chris Tomlin may own the copyright because he is the one that recorded it, and that's his licensing right. But what often happens, and I don't know if this happens with Chris Tomlin per se, because I actually found something that said that he mostly retains his own stuff, and maybe that's because he writes a lot of his own songs. So maybe that's why he retains a lot of it. But we're just using Chris Tomlin. Sorry, Chris, out there, if you're listening. But if he sells his copyright, or if he no longer owns the copyright to that song, whoever owns it gets the royalty off of it. So the royalty is split between the original songwriter and whoever actually owns the copyright. And this is where you were talking about it. And I think that it's really interesting what you were talking about. You're like, anybody could just buy the copyright to this thing. And technically that's true. And they're also often broken up into chunks, like blocks. And so a very desirable song might be packaged with some less desirable songs. And then that copyright holder can re-divvy out those songs and then sell the ones that they don't want anymore. So in theory, now it's not quite as simple as this, but I'm kind of like really breaking it down to like super simple terms. But like in theory, anybody could buy the copyright to like a Delirious song, and it might come in a batch with some songs that aren't really going to do much. And then you could just sell those off for cheap and kind of re-get some stuff. And then you could buy another band and so and so forth. And, do that until you have a collection of songs that only are really, good and make money. Again, it's not quite that simple because a lot of times the actual copyright holders of these are just massive corporations. And something very similar to this happens in the secular world too. So the copyright isn't necessarily, a unique or the way that this marketplace works isn't unique just to Christian music or worship music. But again, we're throwing in worship music into this whole marketplace of buying and selling and who's making what. And so it does kind of complicate things because now it's no longer just, well, I want the worker to get his wages because, yeah, the original songwriter does. But if the person who actually owned the copyright to that song sold it to, say, a secular company, well, now when your church sings it, you're actually paying money to, ultimately, your money is going to a secular company that owns the rights to it. And then the other thing is you pay a flat fee for these copyright accesses. So if your church says, I only sing, good theological songs, I don't sing Bethel, I don't sing Hillsong, technically, yes, your money does not go to Bethel or Hillsong, technically. But you are participating in a marketplace that does support those churches. And the way that the money gets divvied out is it's like maybe a quarterly or yearly payout to the copyright holders. And typically a church like Bethel is probably going to hold their copyright. They're probably not just selling it on the open marketplace. And especially Hillsong, I believe they also own, like, retain theirs. So that is ultimately going back to them. And again, you're participating in a marketplace that doesn't, or that does, include these other churches. And so I'm not trying to make any church feel bad about participating in this. Most churches do. So, like, I'm not shaming anybody. I'm not saying it's sinful to participate in these databases. But I do think that there is an ethical, moral side, or at least a theological side, right, of should we participate in this if it is associated with groups that are diametrically opposed to our theology, that, like Bethel and Hillsong are not Christians.
Yeah, I think what's hard and what sheds a light is that Sunday morning worship is now a marketplace for profit.
Right.
Not just for, again, like I'm all for somebody writes a song, they get credit for it. They get royalties where royalties are due. But the idea, same thing, we have nothing against charities, but look what has become with the charities.
Right.
Is you find out, oh, you can make $500 for signing somebody up. I mean, that means, like, it just, like, it's like a light bulb of, like, well, I could start a band and be horrible and try to book people and then just have them sign up. If I could just get, 10 people to sign up, I mean, I'll make plenty, $5,000 that night. So I'd be all right with that. But it's what is becoming, that's your Sunday morning worship service.
Right.
Is now a marketplace for people. And like it says, these are private equity firms, private this, that, private.
Yeah.
If you have enough money to buy it, we could go in and buy
Right.
a bunch of songs and be like, hey, I hope they do Chris Tomlin or this song or that song this Sunday. And obviously it's not like you're getting paid out every second.
Right.
Like you can just watch
it's
your bank
really
account go up.
oversimplification, and most
Right.
average Joes don't own those things.
Right.
But you are technically right with what you're saying.
Yeah, you could. Yeah.
Like,
so that idea that it's become this marketplace, like we all love Matt Redman's 10,000 Reasons.
Right.
He sold part of that song. So that song makes so much money. He's like, well, I'll sell a stake in it. I'll get, some money. So now when that song's played, he gets his percentage still, but then somebody else gets a percentage.
Yeah.
And it's now become a marketplace for, let's call it for greed, because if the people that are buying it, they're only buying it to make money.
Right.
Exactly. See what I'm saying? Like nobody's like, oh, I'll buy that catalog, take that off your hands. No, they're being bought and sold for profit. This is your Sunday morning worship. This is them banking on what your worship pastor is choosing song-wise. That's what they're betting on. They're betting on the same way you do a stock market. They're betting on the people of God, what they're going to be doing on Sunday morning. And like you said, I mean, there's that's got to bother you a little bit.
Yeah.
That your Sunday morning worship is a marketplace for the world.
Yeah.
For the world, for the secular world, they're betting on your Sunday morning worship and they're profiting from it. Now, if you're a church that just sings hymns, just sings, the old songs that are not in those catalogs.
Anything in the public domain, or in a hymnal or in the Bible is
and
free.
there are plenty of those songs out there, and they're filled with great theology. They're filled with, what's the one? Prone to wander, Lord, I feel it. Prone to leave the God I love. Here's my heart.
Yeah.
Come and take it. Like, there's some great, deep theology in these old hymns. Why do we have to sound cool and hip and Jesus is my boyfriend on Sunday mornings and pay out to these marketplaces? And that's what, like, talk about selling the doves for higher prices
Yeah.
that got Jesus to flip the tables. I mean, this is a marketplace now for profit
Yeah.
with these worship songs, and that should at least give us pause and think about it,
Yeah.
and to think,
Absolutely.
is this worth to sound cool and to say we're doing the latest songs? Is this worth that to feed an industry?
Yeah.
Again, it's not CCLI's fault. It's not Matt Redman's fault and Chris Tomlin's fault.
Right.
But look what it's become.
Yeah.
Look at what bringing in just a little yeast or leaven or whatever the parable is.
Right. Yeah.
A little yeast in the leaven. Like it.
Little leaven. Or yeah. I can't think of
So,
it.
yeast in the leaven. So, but it's that little bit, and then it goes to the next thing, and then it goes to the next thing, and then it just keeps growing until all of a sudden you're like, all right, Sunday morning worship has become a marketplace. People are betting on if they're gonna they spend $100,000 on this catalog, and they're hoping to make $300,000 this month or this year on Christian churches singing these specific songs. And like I said, I couldn't find it, but one of the original articles I read was some of these people do push these songs out. Once they buy them, these companies push these songs out and try to get them to be played. So it's like it's a marketplace.
Well, and so you're absolutely right. A lot of these songs, not all of them, but a lot of them are owned by secular corporations. So a lot of Christian labels are actually subsidies of secular labels, right? So, a big like Columbia Records probably has a Christian music division. I didn't look up that which ones do that, but I read it somewhere a while back, but I don't necessarily have an issue with that per se. But ultimately, you are still feeding into the secular world with this, right? But what happens a lot with the copyright of it is when those do get sold, it's not always a Christian person with a, I just want to own these things and take care of these Christian songs. No, it's usually somebody who's like, these are profitable. I just want to make money. Again,
Right. Yeah,
like,
you're only buying those
it's
songs
kind of a greed
to make
thing,
money.
right?
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right about the pushing it, because when you hear songs on the radio, especially worship songs, a lot of that is pushing out a song to make it trendy and make it popular, because everybody wants to go to the church that's singing the songs that they hear on the radio all week long, right? Like, that's the cool thing that everybody wants to do. And so, a new number one song on the Christian station that's a worship song, it's like, oh, I hope my church sings that, And so they push these things out there. Now, some of that's just like a new song is obviously going to get played a lot, but that's why sometimes you'll hear an old song kind of recirculating. Oh, I haven't heard this in a while. And you just keep hearing it. Well, why was that? Well, we're pushing it. I think you said something really, really good, and I think this is really important to note is, again, public domain songs don't require paying any money. Old hymns, every denomination has a hymnal, probably, and if you're a Baptist church, you definitely have a hymnal. Lutherans have a hymnal, But if you're a non-denominational church, why don't you just go buy all the hymnals from all the denominations, because you're non-denominational anyway, and just kind of pick and choose which ones you want, right? Like, and there is a lot of overlap too. Like, a lot of hymnals actually do have a lot of commonality, because a lot of those old hymns, just kind of entered into the conscience of Christianity, and they're still cross-denominational, even if they had a denominational specific thing, because it's just good theology, right? And every Christian be like, yeah, my heart is prone to wander, or they're sometimes like rewritten, like some denominations might like kind of rewrite the hymn just a little bit to fit their side, and then again with like hymns, not hymns, but psalms. If you sing the psalms, you don't have to pay anything, right? It's just you're singing the Bible. Now, I want to get your take on this. But what do you think of modern bands who then take the Psalms or old hymns and record it, and their version of it is now copyrighted, and their version is now part of this whole marketplace? So, like, you basically make those hymns and psalms trendy, like fit the trendy sound. And then now, this is true with anything. Like you can take an old public domain song, and if you record it, that version of it is now copyrighted. The lyrics might be public, but that version is.
Right. So I know Chris Tomlin has done that with.
Yeah, didn't you do like a whole album of that stuff?
Yeah, like so his is Amazing Grace. I think My Chains Are, and then it's parentheses, My Chains Are Gone, or but he added basically he takes the old hymns, adds like up, modernizes it a little bit, adds a bridge or a second chorus, whatever, and it definitely sounds better than the Bar Tunes version. and and so that's what people sing. Yeah. So when you're doing the Chris Tomlin Amazing Grace or the Chris Tomlin him, I think he's done like 6 or 7, if not all of them. Yeah, 6, 7.
6, 7.
Good golly, everyone just hit off on their on their podcast. The amount, like he's done quite a few of them, but yeah, that version he is now making money off of it.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely, 100%.
Yeah, but like, what's your thought on that?
Again, it's I'm for staying out of the marketplace personally.
Yeah.
Keeping, and again, I don't know, I may end up at a church that they do that, but and it's not something I'm going to die on a hill for.
Sure.
But I think looking at the church, and especially how we've stepped back, and looking into the church, it's the idea of keeping the church as pure as possible.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a gray area when you're participating in the marketplace of greed and profit.
Yeah.
And like knowing that your song selection is going to make people money and different things who may not necessarily even be saved. They only bought these songs to to profit.
Yeah.
Now, where do you draw the line? As a worship leader, do you have to make sure Chris Tomlin still owns his song? Make sure this song isn't going to some offshore, Satanist group or something. Like how much diligence does that? I think it's a burden that shouldn't be put on your worship pastor.
Sure.
I think that's it's just one more thing. But the idea of just not even entering that marketplace so that you remain out of that marketplace so that okay, so my Sunday morning church isn't participating in that marketplace is easier. And I think that would be easier too for your worship pastor if you're a church that has a worship pastor, or if you just have volunteers. It's like, hey, see this hymnal here that's been here for all these years? That's your blank slate. Get as creative as you want in that, and that's what we're working off of. Or open your Bible, sing any verse in the Bible you want, and get a drummer in there and whatever you want to do. So yeah, I mean, personally, like Chris Tomlin is a great musician. Like I love his songs. I'll go to sleep with his album. Put the headphones on, and listen to those albums. It's good music. It's good. And I hope he's getting paid through Apple when I listen to it. But so he's a great musician. I have nothing against that. Again, it's not the it's not the musicians producing music. It's not whether churches like them, right? It's what it's become. Just the same with nothing against charities, but it's what became of it. It's people found out, hey, you can make $500 a person that signs up if you do this, and now all of a sudden you had all these sharks take over that whole industry of signing people up for ministries or charities. That's something. Some kind of reform has to go on there, but it has to be done by the Christian industry.
Yeah,
like those people need to look and go, this is this is robbery. This is skimming the top of these charities. And I think that's how I look at this Sunday morning marketplace. Is it's become a marketplace for greed in what songs are being played. And so, yeah, I think there's a problem there. So I have no problem with Chris Tomlin making hymns into that. But if he's just doing that to be like, oh, this will be a good one, they'll be singing and I'll be making money, then it's sad. I mean, that's definitely sad if that's his.
Yeah, and I'm
heart.
not accusing him of being
and we don't know.
nefarious,
Yeah, we're not accusing him of that. But it is sad if that was his heart. But I think, again, if your church isn't even in that marketplace, then it's great. Hey, play those songs at your house as loud as you want. Fall asleep to them. But unfortunately, we're not going to participate in that marketplace.
No, I agree with you. And again, I'm not trying to cause any like guilt or shame or beat you over the head with the law of like, you got to do things the way I think that it should be done. There's grace, and like you said, there's the burden that you could put on a worship leader. Most of them are volunteers. Most churches can't afford to pay somebody full time to do that. This is a volunteer position that they might only really look at what they're singing and plan it out, like 1 or 2 nights of the week, and then show up for practice before the service and then do it, right? Or like maybe not even that much time. Maybe it's just, Sunday morning and then they do it. So like they can't be expected to necessarily dive deep into where the copyright holders are and all of those things. So yeah, I completely agree with you on that. I think there's another aspect to this entire conversation that I think is really important to note. It's first of all, it's a little bit of a myth that all the hymns are set to bar tunes. Some of them are, but not all of them.
Did that mess you up when I said that?
No, no, because it's a
no, yeah, it's like
they're
all
myth,
bar tunes,
and a lot of them are. A lot of them
right,
were, but not all of them are. And so a lot of hymns, I know that they seem kind of difficult to sing at times or seem kind of weird, but I think it's because most churches don't do that. But a lot of times they were actually intentionally written in a way that actually makes congregational singing easier, right? A lot of modern worship is actually very performative and very creative. And actually, that's what makes it really good a lot of times, because there's these swelling, choruses, and they sing the bridge like 30 or the chorus like 30 times at the end of the song, right? But there's a lot of times the people who are recording it are like really good singers, right? That actually makes congregational singing kind of difficult. And it also puts a real big burden on your worship leader because they don't sound like Chris Tomlin. Like,
right.
And this is no disrespect to any local church worship leader, because you guys are doing the best that you can. And some of you have amazing voices, but like a lot of you have other things going, like, so not every worship leader sounds like Chris Tomlin when they sing, or they play as well, right? Because this is like a side thing that they just do because they're kind of good at it and they want to serve the church, right? And occasionally they're like amazing, but the point being is like if you're singing those songs that your entire congregation hears on the radio every week, and that's what you've kind of marketed your church as, like, we're trendy, we're cool, it's just probably not going to be the same quality. And so it's like, now there's this burden of like, well, my church, the worship, I'm glad they sing that song, but it doesn't sound, and again, the way that the music works is it's intentionally performative. A lot of these worship songs, like Catch the Wind, is not really good for corporate singing. The theology is like vague and probably not even very good at all, but like, it's just not a very good corporate worship song. Even Oceans isn't. Because it's meant for the person that can sing that song to sing it. Whereas a lot of the old hymns actually do kind of work for corporate singing. And they're not just mindless repetition. There's a lot of really deep theology. And I don't want to say every single hymn was written by a theologian or a pastor, but a lot of them were written by theologians and pastors. So I don't think there's anything wrong with non-theologians and non-pastors writing worship songs or songs, but I actually think that this is another thing that's really lost with the CCM thing, right? Is bands are not pastors. Bands are not, theologians most of the time. And so they were writing about normal life, their own struggles. They're laymen singing Christian songs to laymen about the struggles of just, living, right? And then they get into the worship space. They're not really theologians to dig deep into it a lot of times. And so I think that's another aspect for why the theology is like paper thin. It's like this isn't their area of expertise, Now, I'm not. There's some who probably did go to Bible college or something and are really good at it. And so I don't want to paint with a broad brush, but a lot of times it is kind of that way. Whereas the hymns, even if they weren't written by a pastor or theologian, it'd be like a lay theologian that would write it, right? But these are people who did understand theology, who really read their Bible, and that's why they're so deep. And so I think that's another aspect that's entirely lost by singing a lot of the modern worship songs is they're just not really intentionally corporate. They're not really intentionally made to be sung corporately. They're meant to be performed. And the theology isn't as good because they're not necessarily written by theologians.
I think too, like talking about like this burden on these worship leaders too, is like if your band isn't good, your worship band isn't good, or the lead singer or the singers sound horrible, then it's like, oh, they sounded so horrible. But if they sound good, then it's like, oh, they're just showing off. And
yeah, that's
like,
true. That's true.
Like, can you? And it'd be interesting if any worship leaders out there would chime in. But like that idea of like, okay, if you don't sound good, then it's like, oh, you're horrible. But then if you do sound good, then it's like, oh, they're just showing off. They're just trying, that one person puts their microphone up too high or they sing too loud. Like,
right.
What, can you win if really you're the focus? And so I know a lot of churches are going back to, have changed to where they're trying to do more congregational led. So the band will be up there, but they don't have microphones, or the microphone will be set way back for the lead, the worship singer. So they're keeping you going, but it's not kind of this, fog machines, little mist, and then all of a sudden the lead singer just steps up and sings something you can't sing.
Yeah, exactly.
So and so you're right. There, we don't want to put that burden of even, how that person. And to me, it's almost freeing if that aspect of church is congregational led singing. Maybe you have somebody up there, keeping the tempo, keeping the sound, the music. But for the most part, it's not a performance about them up on the stage singing a song, holding a note extra long at the end, and then everybody, I mean, how many times at worship you're clapping because of how good the singer did? I mean, that happened all the time at the mega church. It was like they just hit that note, this and that. The spotlight was on them, the fog, the lights were going all crazy, and you're just like, yeah. But you're like, I'm praising this singer right now for singing really good. It wasn't about the song being about Jesus.
Right, and that actually raises another thing is a lot of the mega churches do this, and then a lot of smaller churches emulate it. But another aspect of the modern worship marketplace is just like there are, genres in regular music, there's now like worship genres. So you have your big triumphant song to start, it's all hype. And then you have your more reflective song, and then you have your kind of like real slow, like this is going to get everybody to give, or this is going to get everybody to come forward,
the sappy music.
Yeah, the sappy music. It's an emotional roller coaster, is what these churches do.
Absolutely.
Because they have the different genres. And like Yeah, there are some old hymns that are more reflective, more celebratory. Like, I'm not saying that those things didn't exist beforehand, but like now it's intentionally done. And so churches will select their songs a lot of times to build around the emotional like roller coaster of the service. And so, you said every church has a liturgy. Yeah, every church does. The mega church liturgy is usually massive hype song to start the whole thing off, and then
Opening song.
yeah, I gotta find that video and share it. That's so
Yeah.
funny. This is the this is the
Opening song.
Yeah, but then it's like this is the giving song or something.
yeah.
And then he's like this is the closing song. Yeah. But yeah, I mean it's all the emotional roller coaster, and the sappy song is intentionally meant. The lights are dim. The whole thing is to get you to feel something. And you can feel that same exact feeling. That's not the Holy Spirit. You can feel that at your favorite band's concert, your favorite secular band's concert. I went and saw Wilco last year. Okay,
That's right. Yeah.
amazing concert. They were the only ones. It was a double set. And they came out for an encore. It was amazing. I've loved the band for a long time. They're not a Christian band, but dude, the energy in the room. These are because Wilco was the only band playing. It was only Wilco fans there. You know what I mean? Like, this isn't like just, and they're kind of a niche band too. So it's like you're intentionally going there because you want to be there for this band, and you felt it. Like, you felt the emotions of the song. You felt the emotions of the room. It was not a worship experience. It wasn't the Holy Spirit. It's just we're caught up in the notes of the music, and it's songs that we know, and we're all singing along, and you know what I'm saying? It's like, and this is a psychological phenomenon. Like, people have studied these things. It's a fact. Like, you can have these same emotions with music that you do with these sappy worship songs. Now, I guess you could argue like, well, but Jesus is involved with these and the Holy Spirit's involved with these, so that's why it's different than that. Maybe, but at the end of the day, there is a emotional aspect tied to the music, and it's intentionally done. And especially with the lights and fog machines and lasers and all those different things. So, one thing that I like about high church is, and high church just means like the church you're visiting is more high church, right? Like, they have intentional readings of scriptures. It's probably the same kind of pattern. Like, their liturgy is organized around like the word of God. You know what I mean?
Right. Yes.
And structure. Yep. And so, like, a lot of times in those types of churches, and those aren't even like your church and my church aren't even necessarily really high church, because I'd be like Catholic and something like that. But we're kind of high-ish church, right? We're not low church. That would be like the mega churches, and that doesn't mean good or bad. It just means the style of church that you're doing. And again, every church is liturgy, but like our liturgy, we have the lights on the whole time, right? And our second service has modern worship, whatever you want to call it, right? But we actually still follow the liturgy of the traditional Lutheran liturgy. It's just we swap out the hymn for a modern song, and we try to be intentional about what those songs are, and so, like, that's how you can still incorporate these things if you want to. I just think if you're going to do that, yeah, you shouldn't throw out your liturgy, and you should be intentional about the songs that you're choosing, But again, one of the things we do is, like, we have the lights on, and the worship leader is on the left side of the building, or the right side of the building. So
outside?
No. Like,
he's inside, though.
He's inside the sanctuary, but he's on.
He should be outside.
Right.
That would be cool.
That would be cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we have done church outside, actually. So
we just have the worship guy outside. Just leave the worship
outside.
guy outside.
I'm not putting him out there. Yeah, no. But no, so like they're in the right corner, the right front corner of the church. And so we have the cross and the altar and, the chancel area, and they're not up there. And so they're not the focus at all. And so, yeah, he is singing into his microphone, and they're playing their guitar and stuff, and the piano and organ are over there. But you don't really see them because they're not the focus of it, right? So the only thing you really see up there is the
They
cross.
don't have a camera on
No.
them and putting the.
Cut to the drummer right now, you know.
I always cracked up when they every Sunday. I can't remember what campus we were at. I want to say it was north or west campus. But they would zoom in on the piano player. She wore all these rings.
Oh yeah.
And like you're singing a worship song and you look up and it's just the keyboard player's hands and all these rings on them, and it's like, really?
Yeah.
Like, what's going on here?
That's wild.
Yeah. So
No,
fun stuff.
yeah. So I mean, yeah.
So you guys don't do that.
No.
That's good.
No, we don't have cameras on anything.
Fog machines? Do you have fog?
No
machines?
fog machines. The lights are on. No lasers. None of that stuff. And again, it's like we'll do like maybe 3 songs the entire service, 3 or 4 songs.
You need to sneak a fog machine in there and turn it on sometime during worship, just for fun.
Fun fact: some Lutheran churches do incense.
Oh, there you go.
So like the Eastern Orthodox do that, and I think some Catholics do too, and some Lutherans will do that.
Yeah.
That's like real high church Lutherans. I've never seen it at our church,
Yeah.
but I'll talk to them about maybe getting some incense in there. So that's kind of like a fog machine, right? So are you telling me that like modern mega churches are like the Eastern Orthodox Church, just
There you go.
cooler,
Yeah,
trendier?
that's their incense.
But no, at the end of the day, I think that it's important to be intentional with the song selection. Realize that this is a profit market driven place, or a profit driven market, that the band that you're singing might not actually be getting the money, so you don't really know where your money's going. And we have this wonderful collection of Christian songs that have been written that have deep, rich theology that are completely free to use. And this would be a little bit of a burden to your worship leader, but your own church can modernize songs too. And so, again, any public domain songs, any passages of scripture. And so if your worship leader is musically talented and has the ability to write new arrangements, and you do like the modern style of worship, he could bring in those old songs and make them sound like the style that you want them to sound like, and you wouldn't have to worry about where your money is going as a church. There's also, I didn't look up the cost, and I think it might be a sliding scale depending on your church and different things like that, but of what the actual like cost is to be a part of these databases. But by removing that from your church, that's also another cost that your church doesn't have to have, right? You got to keep the lights on. You got to pay, any staff you have. So, depending on how much that costs, maybe it's a small fee, but still, that's something that you could eliminate from your church's budget that you could use for other things as well. When you do have this collection of songs that are widely available to you with often better theology. And I don't want to say that all modern worship is absolutely terrible and doesn't have good theology. I know that those groups exist. I'm not a Calvinist. Obviously, I'm a Lutheran, but I know that is it Sovereign Grace? I think that's one of them. So there's Sovereign Grace Music, City of Light. I don't know who this is, but I saw them that are listed as like theologically solid, and I think they kind of fall in the more reformed category. But Matt Boswell and Keith Getty, and so these were kind of listed in sort of a more reformed side, and they write modern songs. And then there's not really any modern Lutheran worship bands that are making modern worship music from a Lutheran perspective. There might be, but I couldn't really find any.
Wasn't there a rock band, Lutheran rock band in the 90s?
There probably was, but I don't.
I feel like there was.
I wasn't a Lutheran in the 90s, so I don't know. I have to look that up.
Interesting. Yeah.
But all I'm saying is like there are some that have taken a good theological stance, right? And while I'm not a Calvinist, Reformed, I still appreciate the theology. I don't think it's complete garbage or anything like that. And I would actually much rather sing a more Reformed song than a Bethel song, right?
Yeah. I think another way to really boost worship without having to pay a CCLI would be just write AI worship songs.
Oh, there you go.
Just do AI generated worship songs and
Yeah.
do them at church. Like have a button that you push.
Mm-hmm.
It'll just be like, you hit the button. You didn't see me, but I pretended like I was hitting a button.
Yeah, I saw
You
that.
hit the button and it just generates
Yeah.
right there.
I mean, you and I have played around with Suno. It's super easy.
It is,
So-
yeah.
Yeah, we could totally do that.
That-
I like yeah.
AI is fun. I'll
It is
I'll
fun.
say
It
that.
is fun.
So we were able to like go back and just put all our songs, 90 songs that we wrote, and you can put make a 90 sound, all that stuff. Put your
Yeah.
lyrics in, you get songs. And it's a lot of fun. But if that's beating out and becoming number one Christian songs,
Yeah.
I think that kind of proves our point of how we feel like where Christian music has gone.
Right, yeah.
If an AI generated song is winning out over what the Christian industry is putting out,
Yeah.
then that kind of tells you something.
So I like Suno because I do write songs. I know you do too, right?
Yeah.
And I still write songs. And so like I've been writing songs. Last year I was like really inspired and like I wrote a bunch of songs. And because I don't play guitar very much anymore, like I lost that like, ability. I could probably pick it up, but so I plug them into Suno. I take the songs, like these are lyrics I actually wrote, put them in there, and then I get to hear what it would sound like if it were to be sung,
Yeah.
But I'm not releasing these songs
No.
because I don't want to be known as an AI songwriter. And then the other thing too is even if I say I wrote the lyrics, if the music and singing parts is AI, people probably won't trust that I actually wrote the lyrics too, because they'll be like, AI probably wrote that. You know what I mean? So in other words,
Yeah.
like by putting it out there as AI, it's not really a human putting it out there. And so I'd much rather just find some artists eventually. And so if you're out there and you want some lyrics, I have some lyrics. But I'd rather do that way,
Yeah. I think it's hard too because if you type in the right thing, because I purposely tried to sound like certain bands.
Yeah.
And you do that and it sounds like them and you're like, okay, how did AI know those sounds? Well, AI obviously took from the actual those sounds and kind of meshed it together. So it's a scary thing. I don't think I have a whole full stance on like is AI, demonic like some people are going
I don't
full
think
on.
it is at all.
But it's wild.
It
I mean,
is
it's
wild,
a wild, wild west right now because like, we played some of those songs for our brother who's a professional musician and he's just blown away. He's like, well, there goes my job.
Yeah.
So, because.
But I would rather him do it. So
No, yeah.
Come on,
and mo-
Josh,
and-
sing my
and-
song.
And hopefully most people would.
Yeah.
But all that aside, if you're a worship leader out there listening, like, don't be burdened by the fact that your church pays a CCLI and you do these songs. This is more of just shedding a light on what this industry has become. It's Sunday morning is being profited on by investors. The worship world on Sunday morning has become a marketplace, and that part's disturbing. 100%. Not the worship leader that's picking even a Bethel song,
Right.
and isn't aware of all these things. Thank you for what you do out there. Thank you for you're leading the worship. I think the bigger issue is, was that ever supposed to be this spotlight on a worship leader
Right.
from the beginning? Was that burden ever supposed to be even put on somebody with the title worship leader to have the spotlight on them? And so, if you're a worship leader out there and you're like, yeah, I don't I don't want to be in the spotlight. I know, our brother's that way.
Yeah.
Then that's awesome. That's cool. But at the same time, if you're a worship leader and that's your goal is to get your hair just right every Sunday and pick the coolest trendy songs, then I think, that kind of person, they've got to do a heart check themselves as
Sure,
well.
yeah.
So, but not here, we're not judging any worship leaders out there. It's more just the reality that it's turned into a marketplace for
Right, yeah.
investors on what songs you're going to be picking this Sunday.
Yeah, absolutely. And like we started at the beginning of this talking about CCM music, the shift to worship music being the primary outlet of Christian bands was at least partially inspired by money. I don't want to say it's all about that, but it's at least partially about it. And so it feeds into this. And so, yeah, I completely agree with you, Judah. And I mean, obviously, I know you agree with me on this. Churches should be intentional about the songs that they're singing. But hey, if you're like, I'm against Bethel. You know that. Everyone who's listening to this podcast knows that, right?
How do you really feel about Bethel, John?
But like, if your church does sing a Bethel song at some point, like, it isn't the end of the world. You know what I mean? Like, it's fine. There's grace, like, but you should be intentional about it. I think you should. And there are options for that we've talked about. But yeah, I just think that the shift to worship music, it just feeds into what you're saying, Judah, of it's become a marketplace, and it's forced a lot of these bands, or not, I don't say forced, it's a lot of these bands are now putting out worship albums when they used to just put out just good music that was fun to listen to. And it's just, to me, I think it's a lost aspect of the Christian culture to kind of not have that. And it was fun. And, I was thinking back on some other little like weird aspects of like Christian music. Like I sent you and Josh a picture of Salty the Singing Songbook, right? Like,
oh, dude,
and
yes.
Music Machine and Nathaniel the Grublet and Ansylvania, right? Like, there's just a weird time in Christian media where like it wasn't all just about worship. It was just like fever dream content.
Right. Oh, man.
And like it's just missing today.
Dude, our church did Salty a few times.
Yeah.
Our poor worship pastor had to play Salty. They painted that dude blue and everything. And then we did a Michael W. Smith Change Your World musical.
Oh, dude,
I
that's
remember
cool.
that. Yeah, I was supposed to sing in that. Like the lines I had,
Yeah.
that character sang. And that's how bad I sang, is they were like, oh, just say your words. And then they were like, you know what? So I think a girl ended up singing my song, my part for me.
Actually, you're not in this production anymore.
Yeah, so I had lines.
No,
but,
yeah.
But yeah, when it came time to sing, they were like, no, dude cannot carry a tune.
That's
so
hilarious, man.
But yeah, so that's lots of memories of the CCM world from being a kid and in the youth groups.
I hope that you've enjoyed our conversation about CCM and just mentioning some of those old bands that maybe bring back a little nostalgia to you. It was fun, and there's some I'm going to like throw back into my rotation and listen to again that I kind of forgot about. But yeah, it's fun to do that every now and then.
Yeah, I do want to say too, if you're someone like us who loves that whole 80s, 90s, early 2000s, listen to 1 Degree of Andy. He's from For Him. It's a podcast.
Oh, there's another band.
Yep, For Him. Yep, I know I left them out, but he interviews all these bands and or individuals that were in bands. Some good ones that are out there. He interviewed Michael W. Smith recently. My favorite one so far to date is Gary Chapman.
Ooh, yeah.
So he was married to Amy Grant. If you're anybody like me who, when Amy Grant and Gary Chapman divorced and everyone was just judging her and all this stuff, you got to listen to Gary Chapman. He's a stand-up guy now. He wasn't at the time. And it just kind of shed some light on Amy Grant, how she was actually just an awesome person, and
Mm.
and she got most of the flack because she was very popular. Nobody knew, like, I don't even think people knew Amy Grant was married, like teenagers, like us as
I
teenagers.
used to think she was married to Michael W. Smith.
Oh, okay, yeah. So yeah, because I mean, she's on all his albums.
Yeah.
There was a tour. Our brother was telling me the other day. There was a tour where it was like Amy Grant, Michael W. Smith, Wayne Kirkpatrick, like, and some of the, like, it was just like it would be like a super tour.
Yeah.
Like putting, whatever 21 Pilots with Taylor Swift with, like all your favorite bands and
Sure.
and but yeah, they were always playing on each other's albums,
Yeah.
Amy Grant and Michael W. Smith. But yeah, no, a lot of people didn't even know she was married or who she was married to. Gary Chapman had some albums. He's got some good albums, but he was a big time writer.
Yeah.
For Michael W. Smith, I believe he was on some of his stuff. Amy Grant, obviously, and others. Like he was a more behind the scenes kind of guy.
Sure.
But it's a really good thing because he just comes out and he's like, dude, it was all me.
Oh wow. Okay.
Drugs, cheating, all that stuff. It was just
Yeah.
all me. It wasn't Amy Grant, and she hung in there as long as she could, and finally she just said, I'm not doing you a favor by staying with you. So it's a good interview, but yeah,
I'll share a link to that episode. So it's 1 Degree of Andy's the podcast.
Yeah, the name of the podcast,
Okay.
1 Degree of Andy, and he's there's a lot of seasons, so he's interviewed a lot of
Cool.
artists, so it's really cool.
Yeah. I haven't heard that, so I'll check that out. I've heard of the podcast, but I haven't heard that episode.
Yeah,
so.
it took me a while. I heard about it, and I was like, I don't know if I want to listen to it. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, dude, this is these are people that, I mean, the Audio Adrenaline, that's another good one. The guy lost his voice, and it just all kinds of stuff. So it's a very good podcast.
Cool. Maybe we can do a collab with them sometime.
There you go, dude. Yeah.
I'll have them on. But yeah, no. This again, this has been a really fun conversation with you to go down memory lane. We grew up listening to a lot of the same stuff, and yeah, I mean, it's just fun. And thanks for everybody who commented your favorite bands and your little memories and stuff. That was fun to read. And again, it just, I think the key takeaway from a lot of what we're talking about is just to kind of be aware of the marketplace aspect of worship on Sunday morning and do with that what you will. That's a conversation. If you're just a layperson of the church, bring it up to your pastor or an elder and just say, hey, I heard about this. Just curious your thoughts. Share this episode with them. If you're a worship leader, go to your pastor, elders, say, hey, maybe I'm thinking about we should be more intentional about this. And if you're a pastor, you do have a lot of influence and you can shift these things. And so, if you do want to move away from the stuff, like maybe it's going to be a slow process, but you could do it, and so again, there's grace, not trying to beat anybody over the head. But it is a marketplace. So, yeah. Well, again, thank you so much for listening to the podcast today. And if you want to email us, tell us more of your favorite old bands or worship or any of those sorts of things, you can email me at badfruitpodcast@gmail.com. You can also look for us on Facebook. Just look for the Bad Fruit logo, and we post some stuff there from time to time. Like today, I posted about favorite bands from the 80s and 90s that were in the CCM world. So love to engage with people about that and then extend the conversation beyond the episode.
What'd you think of that raspberry sherbet?
Okay, the raspberry sherbet. The raspberry sherbet Olipop is amazing.
Dude, yeah, they're at the new Target here in Springfield. They're really good. So thought you would like that. Yeah.
If Olipop wants to sponsor this podcast.
yeah. We are not sponsored right now by Olipop, but I had the peaches and cream. That's a favorite of mine. But that new raspberry.
A lot of our episodes are actually fueled by Olipops. Oh, yeah.